Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Camp's C++ Quickies. Today we're going to talk about the topic of functions in C++. As you can see, we've already got one function in every C++ program. That's the main function. But we're going to talk about other functions today, or adding your own functions. As you may have learned in math, a function is something that takes the form y equals f of x, where f is some mathematical function. It might be sine, it might be cosine, it might be the square root of x. Okay, any of these things, they take an input and they return an output. C++ defines functions very similarly. You can write your own function and you can put the code in your line here and say, int y equals my function of x. Okay, and as long as my function returns an integer value, this is a valid piece of code. Why would you want to write your own functions? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is there's this idea called modular code that increases what's called the maintainability of your code. So let's say every time I run a program, I wanted to introduce myself and say, this program copyright 2020 James Camp. So I could write a function void copyright. Okay, I'll explain those keywords in a minute. And all it does is say cout this program is copyright C 2020 James P. Camp. In line. Okay. And now I can call this from my main function and say have it say my copyright, and then do other things. I can have it say hello, in which case I write another void say hello. Notice that function names follow the same rules as other identifiers that would be variable names. For example, you have to start with a letter. You can have underscore characters in them, but you can't have any spaces. Cout what is your name? String name, getline cn name, cout hello name in line. Okay, so I run this, and you'll see that what will happen is it will call the copyright function first. We've got to build. Compiling time, go get a cup of coffee. So it ran the copyright function and spat out this program is copyright C 2020 James P. Camp. Then it immediately ran the say hello function. So what is your name? Bobby someone, hello Bobby someone, and then it finishes. Okay. So these little functions are not by themselves code that you couldn't just as easily write in your main function, but by separating them out as separate functions, it has a couple of effects. One, it makes the logic of the main function easier to follow. We're going to say the copyright statement, then we're going to say hello to the user. Okay, and then if I want to know the mechanics of how each of those things works, I can look up the function that does it. So this goes another step toward, if you use meaningful function names, it goes another step toward making your code self-documenting. You can read main and figure out that there's a precise set of steps that are being followed. If I was running a robot, there might be code that sets the motor speed and direction, and dropping a whole bunch of motor speed and direction commands into my main function would look very messy and be hard to understand. But if I had a function called go forward and a function called turn left, and I had go forward, turn left, I'd understand exactly what the robot is supposed to be doing. And if I wanted to know the mechanics of how go forward worked, I could look up the go forward function and see that it was setting all the motors to forward at 50% power or something like that. So this makes your code easier to read. It makes your code easier to maintain because you can easily track down which function is not working and just have to fix that code. And it makes your code more modular in that if I'm starting a new program, I can bring my copyright and my say hello over to that new program, and I don't have to rewrite those things or try to figure out where they were in my other program. In a little bit more advanced C++, you can also add your own, you can add a new source file. Right now this is demoplayground.cpp, but I could add a mycommonfunctions.cpp to this and move copyright and say hello to that, and then I don't even have to do any copying and pasting. I just take that file and include it in all of my projects. Okay. The other reason why we can use functions is that they work like mathematical functions. Every function in C++ has a return type, a name, a function name, parentheses, and then arguments or parameters. Some people say there's a difference between an argument and a parameter. Other people say that the terms really are used interchangeably. It doesn't matter to me how y'all want to use those languages. Note that now it's giving me red squiggle underlines under copyright and say hello because those are no longer valid functions because I've just taken the code away. Okay, but let's say I had double radius 3.5, height 4.0, width 5.0. I should put in equals signs here. I don't know what I was thinking here. I don't know any programming languages where you can just do that. Okay. So maybe we want to know the area of a circle with this radius and a rectangle with that height and width. So I can, my return type, these are, maybe I have to want to set my return type in a minute. So I'll just say return type for right now. Then area of, now my radius is clearly a double value, so I want double radius. Okay, I can use the exact same name here, or I can use a different name. It doesn't matter. When C++ copies the value that I call into here, it's going to rename it whatever name I gave up here. Now, if I'm going to do a calculation with a double R, I'm probably going to get a double as a result, unless I typecast it to something else. So we're going to make the return type double. So double A equals mpi times power of R2. Okay, if that's difficult to understand for anybody, I'm going to say area of a circle equals pi r squared. Okay, and so that makes it obvious what I'm doing. And then I want to return the value that I just calculated, and that's going to pass this calculated area back to the function. So I can say cout the area of a circle with radius is area of radius in line. Okay, so it will call this function area. It will pass the radius value in here, so it's going to copy radius over here, rename it r, and then drop that r into my function here, so I can calculate a, and it's going to return a, and that's going to replace the area function here with that value, so that's going to be used in our output statement. So let's see how this works. Compiling. I usually do this on a faster computer so that I don't have to worry with so much compile time. Okay, the area of a circle with radius 33.5 is 38.4845. Do we all believe that? Well, if the width was 7 times 7 is 49, so a circle that fits within that 49 centimeter square would be 38.5 square centimeters. We believe that. Okay. Now, what if we also want to say cout the what if we wanted this to be a diameter? Okay. Can I do this? Can I take diameter over 2 and pass that into the area? The answer is yes, I can. I can do math inside a function call as long as I'm as long as I'm doing this, pass by value, copying it. There is a way to pass by a variable by reference or by pointer, and those you can't do math with. But as long as it's a standard function pass, I can do this diameter over 2. So the area of a rectangle, that is height by width, is, well, what do I put here? This is another important aspect of C++ functions, is that you can overload them. Okay, overloading is a C++ concept in which you can give multiple things the same name as long as the compiler can figure out what you mean. How does the compiler figure out what you mean? Well, they have to have different numbers or types of parameters. Okay, so I can do double width, comma, double height. Okay. Area of a rectangle is width times height. So double A equals W times H, return A. Okay, so I can do exactly the same kind of calculation that I did up here, but it's a different calculation. And so now I can drop in area of height comma width. You say, wait a minute, you said width first and height second. It doesn't matter what I call the variables. Height is going to be copied up here and called W. Width is going to be copied up here and called H. Oh well. If it mattered which one was in which order, then certainly I would want to change the order of my variables here. But in this case, it's one times the other. It doesn't matter. Okay. But I've got two functions of type area. One of them takes a single parameter. The other one takes two parameters. The compiler can figure out the difference. So I'm going to run it. Build, 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 compile, compile, compile. Okay. The area of a circle with diameter 3.5 is 9.62113. The area of a rectangle that is 4 by 5 is 20. Okay. So it called the appropriate function for each one and figured out what to do. Okay. So that's the basics of function writing in C++. I encourage you to start thinking about how you can break your code up into modular functions to make your code easier to understand, easier to use, easier to edit, etc., etc.